Are you ready to move from an ordinary life to an extraordinary one where you meet your business goals, create a life that has success in health, wealth, and for self? Then come and join us for our retreat in Byron Bay, Australia at the end of July, start of August 2025, and come and rediscover who you really are. More details can be found at willowhealing.org.
Welcome to Willow Healing Matters, the podcast. We are so excited to have you joining us on this journey where we explore different ways to empower your soul, whether it's healing in your kitchen or all the way up in the corporate world. Come with us as we look into different ways to heal your mind, body, and soul. Hey everyone, it's Catherine from Willow Healing, and I have the beautiful Leah Spasova here with us today. So she's a psychologist, sex and relationships expert, and the founder of lifesexplicit, a groundbreaking censorship-free platform for sexual wellness, which is so needed in our world at the moment. With a background in psychology and years of experience supporting clients in navigating intimacy, relationships, and personal growth, Leah empowers individuals and professionals alike. Through Life's Explicit, she champions inclusive sex, positive resources, and education, helping break down taboos and provide a safe space for expert-led support. Leah's mission is to create accessible, stigma-free pathways to sexual and relational well-being. And a big welcome to the show, Leah. Thank you so much for being on.
Thank you so much for having me, Catherine. I'm excited about today's conversation.
So I guess the biggest thing we were talking about before the show started recording was what your inspiration was to create this amazing platform called Life's Explicit.
Well, the truth is that a lot of people need sex and relationship support and are unable to find the right support. That's for various reasons, and I'll just touch on briefly on a few of them. One of them is the censorship. Not many people know, but there is actually a war on your sex life as we're speaking right now and has been for as long as we can remember. There's a massive, some people may even call it a conspiracy against your joy and pleasure. And even health companies cannot promote their products if it's sexual health related, because God forbid you have healthy sex life and a healthy body to enjoy. Because as I keep saying, that war is very much tied with consumerism. There is a reason why they try to sell to you everything through, sex appeal. Have that dress and you'll be sexier. Have that watch and you'll get laid, whatever it is. They sell through sex because they know how powerful sex is and how much it gives us. And there is a war on your intimate life, because if you are happy, fulfilled, talking about it openly, all of that, there is no way that you're going to be a good consumer, because you would be out there enjoying yourself, your healthy relationships, your intimacy, your body. You're not going to be waiting for the next Amazon package or Gucci bag or doom scrolling on your phone and keeping engaged with, the algorithms. So that's one of the main reasons why, even in the digital age, we can't reach the general public because we get censored. So people don't even know we exist, sex and relationship specific professionals. And the other thing is, most people and even health professionals don't know that the mainstream therapist and counselor, they have probably not done more than a day of studies in sex and relationships. Most of the training is focused on anxiety and depression, and sex and relationships are not even a thing in most programs for studies and so forth. So what happens is that people would find a therapist if they haven't spent a few years waiting on the national service to provide them with such for free, which probably didn't lead to anything. And they start searching for professionals that can actually help them privately, and they can't find us. So Life's Explicit is the place where you can find resources and support specifically for sex and relationship issues, rather than expecting the your GP would refer you well, or that you would just stumble upon the best therapist who would miraculously, have done all this necessary training for your specific issue.
And I think I think it's such an issue just across all allied health, because even from my speech pathologist background, I often would talk about how through my 4 years of uni, I had 1 hour on autism spectrum disorder, and my first caseload was 90% children with autism spectrum disorder. And I had to go do my own learning and professional development and all those sorts of things. And it's just this massive gap in knowledge. It's almost like, honestly, I reflect on what I learned at university, and I think I use maybe 5% of what I actually learnt. So,
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's wild, and things are changing. There's more and more sex and relationship topics inserted into the counseling and therapy training. However, the other thing that a lot of people don't know, specifically in the UK, you don't have to have studied psychology to be a therapist or a counselor. And that is surprising for a lot of people. Yeah, I see your face. You're like, whoa, what?
yeah. It's funny, because I've gone this as I've moved my identity into like coaching, right? And I had this phone call from this place, and they're like, "Oh, how'd you get your qualifications for coaching?" I'm like, "Life and God, does that count?" Because if you've got the knowledge and you've done the training, I guess that's where, as long as you have this kind of safe space, that's where it's, you can have a therapist that can be very supportive of you. But when you're going there with under false pretenses and expectations, that's where it gets a bit icky, right?
Yeah, no. That's a whole other issue, like in itself. But again, realistically speaking, psychology is the study of the human mind and behavior. And yeah, I'm biased. I've studied psychology, right? But I think that unless you understand why people react a certain way, what kind of dynamics are supporting their current behaviors and so forth, I don't think therapists can be as effective, because they themselves do not understand why this person is acting like this. So I'll always advocate, if you're searching for specifically like sex and relationship professional, search for someone who has background in psychology, who has done some psychology, to be able to understand what's happening for you. Because I've had a lot of clients over the years that have come to me after years of therapy, actual years of therapy, and we start unpacking and stuff, and I'm like, do you understand why this is happening? Do you understand why you're reacting that way, etc.? And one particular client always pops to mind. She has been in therapy for about a year or two before she came to me, and it's like 1, 2, 3, 4 sessions. We're in the fourth session, and I already have like a very good idea of what's happening, what's the dynamic at home between her and her husband, why she is reacting the way she is, etc. And she tells me what is happening, and she's like, I don't understand why I'm like this. Why am I like this? And I'm like, okay, do you want me to tell you what's happening? And she's like, can you? And I'm like, yeah, I understand what's happening. I can see the dynamic.
Yeah.
And I start explaining to her, look, the way you're acting like this is because X, Y, Z. This is the dynamic you had at home. This is the dynamic you're repeating right now. This is how you need to start shifting. And she was like bawling the whole time. She was crying so much. I was like, holy shit, I think I pushed her too hard maybe. She comes the next session, and I'm like, how are you doing after last time? And she's like, yeah, I'm a lot better. And I'm like, okay. So is this the first time you've learned things like this about your dynamics, your relationships, etc.? And she goes like, yeah. And I'm like, can I ask you some questions about your previous therapy experience? She goes, sure. And I ask her, like, tell me how a normal session used to be for you with your previous professional. She goes, I'll just go and sit there and chat for like an hour and tell her what was happening and cry and go home and build up a new storyline for the next sessions, you know. And I'm like, okay. And that was for like a year or two. And she goes, yeah. I'm like, in that time, did your professional ever help you understand yourself or make sense of things, etc.? And she was like, no, I just used to go cry a little, feel a little bit better, and rinse and repeat the next time. And I was just like, right, yeah, that seems to be a common thread, because that's what other clients have told me about previous experiences with therapists. That lady, after working for a year together, has made such huge shifts in her life, in her personality even. Personality is not a static thing. She completely shifted how she responds, how she interacts, how she values herself, self-esteem, all of these things. She was very aware of the dynamics between her and her partner. She could interrupt them, and so forth. And that's the difference between just going to any professional and it sounds really harsh, but treating them as an emotional bin, you know, like
Yes.
bin for emotional garbage, versus actually going with purpose and saying, I don't like XYZ in my intimate and romantic life, and I want to work with it.
Yeah.
And that's the important bit, to go to the right professionals and do the good work, so that in a year time or 2 years time, you're like a brand new person that's living the best life that they wanted to build anyway.
Yeah, and I feel that's definitely an element missing. Like, I know a lot of people who have been to psychologists and they'll say nothing changed, nothing, because it wasn't. And even I had one person I'm thinking of at the top of my head who the psychologist said, oh, your emotions aren't real. I was like, what? And they're like, oh, it's just what you're feeling, fear and excitement feel the same. I'm like, well, they do, but they also have different energies behind them, right? And, they just had these emotions dismissed. And then she had one session with a practitioner who did neuroemotional technique, the like to really tap into the emotional side. And she said, I achieved more in that 1 hour session than I did from 3 hours of therapy, because all of a sudden my emotions were acknowledged. What was going on internally was being acknowledged, rather than it's all just a story in my head. And we're not putting everyone in that boat. Leah and I aren't doing that, but we're also saying that this is an awareness of, these are practicing skills that you should be aware of when you're engaging a psychologist or engaging a therapist, that you should feel heard, right, and validated.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I say to people, it's very important that you find the right professional for you. And it's very important that if you're feeling like you're not making progress, that you ask questions.
Yeah.
And that you challenge what's happening in the sessions. There are times when, I would push a client with some knowledge or insight, etc. I'll hold them accountable to, what we've discussed previously, what homework they've done or whatever else. And sometimes, I need to stop my clients when they themselves are running away from addressing things. And I'm like, okay, you've been talking about Jimmy, Samantha, Joey, blah, 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 blah. Where's you in this conversation? Can we bring it back to you? You need professionals that know how to bring you into the room and work with you on a deep level. And again, every professional is different. I'm not the best professional for everybody. Of course, I'm not. And I'm not ever going to pretend that I would be. That's why I do a discovery call with potential clients. I do not want to commit to working with someone that I do not know what the challenge is and whether I'm the best to address it at this time, or that I might be one of the right professionals to address it, right? You can never know for sure.
But yeah, sometimes you get a curveball and you think, oh, I didn't see that one coming.
I don't know how, but I genuinely, after a discovery call, I know whether I can work with this person with great confidence. I'm like, yep, I can work with this person. And I tell them, if you feel that I'm the right professional for you, let's do it. If I don't feel like that, I'm like, I can refer you out. I'm not the person for you.
Yeah.
Do you want some referrals?
I'd say that's your intuition kicking in, right? And all that years of working with clients and building up and just having that inner knowing that, yeah, I can really help this person, or no, we're not aligned to work together at this time?
It's a mix of things. It's not just intuition, it's experience, it's knowledge, it's also knowing who I am. I've had people, because I'm kink positive and I'm a kinky person myself, so I have a lived experience with that. And I know I've had potential clients come to me and they're like, "Oh, I have those kinks and I want to like not have them anymore." And kind of like suppress them and bury them somewhere. And I'm like, I'm not the person for you. If you want to live your full life, come to me, we'll work on it. But if you're trying to oppress yourself, I'm not going to be the person doing that for you, because I don't believe in it, because I think that this is exactly where pathology starts spinning out of control. And not because you have that kink, but because you're refusing to accept who you are and what you need.
Yeah.
It's like, don't drink water, drink only Pepsi or Coke. What? No, like your body needs that. You can't refuse your nature, who you are, and so forth.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's important to find the right professional. That's what I'm passionate about. And I think a lot of women, because what we started talking about before we got on the pod, was especially women being absolutely neglected sexually, intimately, etc. And taking years, even decades, to get to turning towards themselves and being like, wait a second, my partner of 10, 20 years has been having orgasms every single time. And I'm there feeling used and unfulfilled and unimportant and all these things.
Yeah.
And that's another reason why I'm passionate about helping people find the right help.
I'm saying yes because in my first marriage, it ended up being quite like a sexless marriage, like a lot, to the point where then I went into the questioning my value and questioning my worth, and, even questioning, am I pretty? Am I beautiful? Like it really makes you reflect on yourself, and you feel that there's something wrong with you when there's nothing wrong with you. There's like, it's just that imbalance in that relationship, and it was always on his terms, not my terms. If I went to initiate something, I always got shut down, but if he went to, then it was okay. So there was this very much this imbalance, and it was kind of all added up to, then when I left and I started dating again, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, hang on a moment, this is what it could be like. This is what I feel like it should have been like. But because, when you get married so young, you don't realize there's a difference with that.
Yeah, that's exactly why a lot of these misogynistic people online, not to name names, but are absolutely like, yeah, get them women when they're young and blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, when they are inexperienced and you can manipulate them and you can strip them of their power, you can absolutely make them doubt themselves and not have any sense of identity and self-worth. So you can absolutely do whatever the heck you want with them. And that's why I worry when young kids, even when they're like 15, 16, 17, 18, they take these relationships that they have at the time so seriously. I'm like, no, please don't. Like we live to 80, 90 years old. You're not going to be likely to stick around with that, 15-year-old boy until you're 90. It's just insane. Live to learn, to expand yourself, to experience yourself. Especially in those very young formative years.
Yeah, and I guess that's where, because I still remember at high school, gosh, I think we all have these memories of high school, right? Where there was such an imbalance, if one of the guys in the year would have lots of girlfriends or be known for sleeping around and things, like that was okay. But if you were the opposite and more as a female and more sexually prowess, then you were painted in a certain light, normally a slut or something else like that, and it's just like, hang on. I always thought to myself, Why is there double standards? Why can't I be in my sexual power and own that sexuality and instead have to dim myself because apparently I'm meant to? Yeah.
Because you just literally named the reason: power.
Yeah.
Because they don't want you to have power, and that's why women's sexuality has been suppressed and oppressed and so forth. That's why I keep saying, women should not be leaning on to men for their sexuality. Women should know their sexuality. And the reason why there is this whole like slut shaming even today, and what angers men is like, yeah, but it's so much easier for a woman to get laid. And I'm like, yeah, and it's so much easier for you to get a promotion, get a CEO position, and be trusted in court even when you sexually abuse and harass people and get away with murder. And it's so much easier for you to blah, 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 blah. And then women have one thing that it's just easier for us, and we have the upper hand as to whether it happens or not between us and someone else, and you're pissed off about it. Like, chill the fuck down. Like, chill out. It pisses a lot of men off and society off when women have power. And that's why women's sexuality is oppressed. That's why women are robbed of choice. That's why one of the biggest violence that a man can threaten a woman is rape, to take your sexual agency.
Yeah. And just that, I can't speak from experience, but having that power taken away and feeling that you have no control over that situation, even a small thing. Like I remember when I was younger, this guy kissed me and I didn't want to be kissed by him, but it felt so violating. And it's not to the extent, obviously, of rape, but it's still that violation. It's still like, hey, I didn't want that to happen. And I only told one friend about it, and it was a guy actually. And he said, that ain't right. He's like, he's just like, it's not okay that happened, especially if you didn't want it to happen and you were put in that situation. And I was like, no, thank you for making me see that as well, because I went into this questioning of who I was, and that doubt and that sort of thing. And even in my first marriage, it was used as a power tool. Like sex was being used to, as a control thing.
Yeah. Absolutely. And there is this, my favorite author is Oscar Wilde, a brilliant writer, very witty. He has this quote that says, everything is about sex, except sex. Sex is about power.
Yeah. Agreed. 100%.
And that is it. When you feel like you don't have access to support, knowledge, autonomy, authority, and so forth over your sexuality, they're taking your power away. Whoever they are. Online, it's media and advertising companies like Meta and even Google and whatever else. They do not want you to have that access to knowledge and power. They do not want that. When it comes to government, they do not want you to be powerful, empowered, like in spirit. Like I've been asked so many times, are there benefits to a company if you're like happy and satisfied and in a good relationship and thriving sex life? And I'm like, of course there is. Think about it. Have you ever had an amazing night, connecting night with someone, pleasure and all of that, sparks, and afterwards you feel like you can conquer the freaking world, right? And most people go like, yeah, I've had that. At least once I've had that.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, okay, and then imagine the opposite. You have had a fight with your partner. The next day, how do you feel? Where's your head at work? Is it, I can conquer the world? Or is it, I wish I said this to them. Oh, how dare they, blah, blah, blah. And the whole day is just spent in obsessing about what happened and being angry and uncooperative with your colleagues and definitely not completing your tasks for the day. Yeah. Like, of course, there is a lot of power in being happy and fulfilled.
Yeah. And, you know, and then how across, especially if you're a professional service or you're a people-based service, right? Like, people know when you're in a good mood or a bad mood. And from working with children for so many years, they know as well. You know, they definitely know. You know, so if you come in and you've had post-orgasmic bliss or a very delightful evening, you know, whatever it might be, you're walking on cloud nine and nothing can touch you. You're like, yeah, I feel beautiful and powerful, and I just had this amazing night, and all my, you know, pleasure centers are lit up and happy. And then you're going to take that energy and then spread that as well. Versus, exactly, I having this fight with my husband, you know, or my partner or whatever it might be, and I've got to deal with that subconsciously in my mind whilst I'm still trying to show up and do my job.
Yeah. So that's why I ask people, think what would happen if people globally were more empowered to have the skills, the relationship skills of communication, conflict resolution of conflict, how to pleasure each other. Goodness, that's so important. And yet most people cannot even identify where their anatomy is and the right words for it, etc. Not to mention how to pleasure each other, you know. Imagine a world where people are so much more connected, so much happier, so much more involved with each other in a positive way. Because again, if you're happy and you're turning up to work, you're way more positively involved with your colleagues rather than shutting down and just upset with the world. How much more power would we have if we had more compassion and patience and love for each other? Because think about protests, for instance, and all the things. Because again, before we started, you were saying how in the recent podcast that you've been recording, you've been talking about the broken systems, education, finance, healthcare, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, imagine how much more capacity would we have if we were happy, connected people with each other and supported each other.
Yeah.
Because one of the biggest lessons I learned about power in society was when I was in high school. Our teachers went on a strike and we were told don't come in for the rest of the week. And as teenagers, we were like, yes, no school, right? Except I come back to school a week later and I ask my teacher, one of them, why did you have to strike? What was this about? And he tells me, well, the wages are really low and a lot of teachers, good teachers, are leaving, or they have to do an extra job to support themselves. And the system as it is just not supportive of good people staying in the sector, right? And I sat down with this and I thought, bloody hell, like I know that just mere couple of years ago, I had to pay, including a lot of my classmates, for extra tutorials outside of school privately so that we can get into better high schools, so that we can get into where we want it to be. And the same was happening in the final year of high school to get into university. And I'm sat there thinking, yeah, of course, if you have shitty teachers, because all the good ones have either immigrated or moved to a different field or completely like just dropped teaching, then you have the shit teachers that don't teach you much. Then you have to pay extra. And that's an expense for your parents. Or when you're like 18, maybe you're paying that. And it's harming your family. It's harming the system as a whole.
Yeah.
And I was like thinking about this and how everything is so connected. And I realized that when teachers are going on a strike, the students have to be on a strike with them because they're not getting the education at school where they should be. So you're in school and then you're going to extra lessons? Gosh, no. And then for the family, they're paying for you to go to school and then for extra lessons and activities and blah, blah, blah. So I was thinking the students should be striking, the parents should be striking.
Yeah, because then if you have that, everyone empowering everybody and acknowledging what's happening, then you're a force to be reckoned with, right? So when you were talking, there's this analogy that I keep getting shown about the crabs in the bucket. I don't know if you've heard this one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for anyone who doesn't know, just Google crabs in a bucket. But if crabs in a bucket, they all help each other to go get out. But then just before the the crab at the top's about to get out, they pull it back down and then they start again and they keep going and going and going. So instead of empowering each other and using each other to help everyone get out, no one can get out. And they get stuck in this loop. And instead of empowering other people like we can, we just have been brought up kind of in this culture where we cut other people down, like that's such I want to say patriarchal kind of system that has been created because it's not about empowering everybody else. It's a race of competitiveness of who can get to the top the fastest. And, it's like a lot of industries too are there's anyone's game. There's no rules.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the dog eat dog and zero-sum game societies that we live in. That's why female leadership is so important, because women are way more cooperative. And they're like, no, this impacts everybody. We see it as in a system, not like an individual standalone kind of issue. Just as when, my light bulbs were going off and I was like, wait a second, like, them being underpaid means shittiest teachers for us. We're enduring them. We're paying and going for extra lessons outside. And I started seeing this whole system there. So imagine if all of us were more educated on how to have healthy relationships and pleasure and, resolve conflict with confidence and embracing it, etc. How much more society would be advancing versus you're upset, you're in a marriage for 5, 10, 20 years where you're unfulfilled, unseen, unheard.
Yep.
Disconnected. And I bet you your partner was not the happiest bunny ever.
No. And
right?
And it's so true, because I was making it my mission to make him happy, but I forgot about making myself happy, first. Yeah. So, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. And that's why I'm like, if you don't put the effort right now in your growth and development, if you don't work with a professional now, when is it going to be a good time? I have clients in their 60s and 70s, honestly, and their regrets are, I should have gone on this journey 20, 30, 40 years ago. I've never heard someone say, great growth. Maybe it could have waited another 10 years or 20 years for me to fuck up another 17 relationships. And, no, I've never heard anyone wish that they did growth and personal development and pleasure later in life.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, you don't, look back on life. It's like that saying that you don't look back on life and wish you slept more, right?
Or that you went to your job more.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, I wish I spent the extra 6 hours every day at the office.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen.
CEO of the year, workaholic of the year. Exactly. Again, I keep pushing people to remind themselves that life is short. And sometimes you should really prioritize dessert and start with dessert. And if sex is not the best dessert to start your day with or finish it with, and connection is not just the sex, it's the connection, the passion, the feeling desired, the uplifted, seen, all these things. Why? Yeah. Why? Do you want to wait until you're 70?
Or the next relationship or whatever it might be, and I guess it comes to that responsibility for yourself as well and taking your power back. Yeah. And
exactly.
Yeah. So if people want to check out your portal that you've built, this beautiful portal where people can actually have uncensored information, what can they expect diving into there?
If people go on lifesexplicit.com, they're going to find a lot of resources and support from various professionals from around the world, experts in libido, in tantra, in BDSM, in anything and everything, really, and can find articles, videos, podcasts, courses that professionals have created, lots of resources. And if they connect with a professional and what this professional has added to the platform and contributed with, they can click a button and get in touch with them through the platform. So it's very easy to search as well based on what kind of challenges you have. So, for instance, if you have challenges with desire, you can actually look up for professionals specializing in libido and desire. If you have issues with, let's say, erectile dysfunction or whatever it is, this is also under sexual dysfunction and challenges. If you, let's say, have long-term health conditions, right? A lot of people suffer from, especially women, from fibromyalgia and so forth.
Yeah.
You can search for sex in relationship with chronic illness or postpartum or all of these kind of pregnancy related or infertility. So there's a lot of challenges around the sex and relationship side of life. And if you're interested in finding the right professional for you, you can search based on what is your challenge there.
Yeah.
So far, we're the only platform that I know of that allows you to be so specific in your search and find all sorts of resources around those topics.
I love that you've created this, Leah. That's amazing because, like you said, it's so censored. And, you know, especially for women, there's like this taboo in society that we're not meant to talk about these things either. It's just kind of an accepted thing. And I still made me think of when I started dating again after my ex. And I was telling him, like, you know, I came out of this relationship and and we hadn't met yet because it was online, you know. And then when he saw me in person, he actually said, wow, you're much like, yeah, you know, I when you were telling me all this stuff, I thought you'd be a dog, you know. And he goes, but you're not. You're actually like really good looking. And I was like, what? It was just so that was his automatic presumption. And even, you know, a lot of people who you would mention that is like, oh, well, what have you tried? Like to me. And I was like, okay, well, I've done this, 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 and this. And they're like, oh, okay, like you are really trying to, you know, bring something back. But obviously the missing element was the power, which was part of it, right? And understanding that power dynamic. And then also understanding, you know, for anyone who's left a marriage for whatever reasons, having that power and courage to do that, it is so empowering. Like if it's just, you know, if you can't grow together and you grow apart, seeing that for yourself and being able to step through that. And that can all come from as well your sexual power. It can all come from owning your worthiness and owning who you are and that desire, like you were saying.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of women specifically self-abandon in order to stay in relationships. And one of my favorite comedians, a bit controversial, but Louis C.K. has this piece in his comedy where he says, like, I don't understand why people, when you tell them I'm getting divorced or something, they go like, oh, I'm so sorry. What are you sorry for? It didn't work. Have you ever heard of someone breaking their marriage because they were too happy and it was amazing? Like, no, congratulate me on making that step out of something that's not working, that's probably toxic and unhealthy and I'm unhappy in. Congratulate me out of it. Why are you saying sorry? Like,
It's so funny you say that because when I did get divorced and separated, everyone's like, wow, you know, you look really different. Have you lost weight? And I said, yeah, about, you know, 90 kilos, which was how much my ex weighed. And they're like, wow, we didn't even know. I was like, yeah, no, I'm getting divorced. And they're like, oh, we're so sorry. I said, I'm not, you know, like, and it's nothing against my ex. It's just together we were not okay. You know, together we weren't fulfilling each other, we weren't pushing each other, you know, and it was really taking that acknowledgement of that as well. But, you know, it was just so funny. Like you said, everyone's like, oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. And it's like, well, I'm not, you know, I'm like, I'm happy. Thank you. Yeah.
it, I think the part is like people being like, oh, it was an unsuccessful marriage or something. And I'm like, you know what? I have this ex of mine. We were together for 5 years. We have been in each other's life for like half our lives now. And he is like the most loyal, amazing, funny person ever. But we were just not a great couple. We are great as friends. We would still travel together. I've third wheeled on Christmas and New Year's Eve with his current girlfriend of 5 or 6 years. You know, we've been separated for over 10 years now. So, and I'm like, we are great as friends, But as partners, we're both like strong-willed, clashing, fighting about the smallest thing, etc. We're not good at partnership together.
Exactly.
But that's the thing, like redefining a relationship, zooming out of a relationship because it's not the best dynamic, that's the best thing you can do for both of you. Life is short.
Yeah, agreed. 100%. Life is short, and that's why, you wake up each day and you fully embrace it, and run with it. So,
Yeah.
as we're finishing our time together, Leah, I ask all my guests if they could change something in the world for health or whatever it might be, what would it be?
If I could change one thing in the world is give everybody critical thinking, evaluative thinking skills. Because this is this is exactly that kind of ability to discern and to sit there and be like, why is this like that? Who's benefiting? How is this hurting me? How is this hurting my neighbor, my friend, my cousin, some people on the other side of the planet? Because when you have that kind of ability to critically evaluate, and I'm speaking about critical evaluation, not just criticizing,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Because everybody can sit there and be whining and be, bitching about stuff. No, it's sitting there and understanding what's happening, learning about it, evaluating it critically. If we had a lot more of that, I bet you the majority of professionals in the world would be doing way better because we would be supporting the right professionals. I think it's insane that footballers are paid more than neurosurgeons and brain surgeons.
I say this too.
Or whatever it is, like if we started thinking critically and evaluatively of what's going on in the world, there will be far less wars. There will be a lot more health and education and support systems for everybody to thrive, not just the 0.01%, which is about 2,000-3,000, people in the whole world. I wish that for people. A lot of people say, "Oh, world peace." Yeah, if we have critical thinking, we can have world peace and some.
Yeah. And I guess that's too where instead of stepping into that reactive mode, you start to question, like, what does this mean? What is it teaching me? How's this helping me grow? And like you said before, like a divorce isn't a unsuccessful marriage. It's you learning from that to help you grow and taking a step out of that relationship or that situation that was dimming your light.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So that's the one thing that if I could give to the world,
I love it.
Everywhere, I would. That would be it.
And how can people find you, Leah?
I am very Googleable. So if you just Google my name, Leah Spasova, you would find me everywhere you want to find me. LinkedIn, my website. You can find me on Life's Explicit as well. If people are interested, I do have a free ebook that I'm passionate about giving. It's called The Three Secrets to a Pleasure-Filled Life.
Love it.
And that's available on my website. It's available on Life's Explicit as well. So if you just Google my name and put ebook, Three Secrets, you would find it. And you would find me everywhere you need to. And I encourage you, today's the day. Take a risk. Start working towards the life that you want to live rather than the one that you're in. Because as the great quote says, whatever you don't change, you choose.
Mm-hmm.
So find the professionals that would work for you by visiting lifesexplicit.com.
Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you so much, Leah. And I'll put all your details in the show notes as well. So if anyone doesn't know how to use Google, they can find you. So
amazing.
Thank you so much for your time, Leah. It's been a very enlightening conversation, and I feel it was definitely one that needed to be heard.
Thank you so much, Catherine, for having me, and let's hope that we've inspired people.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to Willow Healing Matters, the podcast. We have so much love and gratitude that you have taken the time out of your day to empower you on your healing journey. The views shared by the person being interviewed might not necessarily reflect that of the host and should be used at your own discernment. Trust what resonates for you and follow your heart and soul guidance. If you have any underlying medical conditions or mental health issues, please consult with your healthcare provider before pursuing any of the recommendations. Likewise, you can always contact the person being interviewed to find out more information. This can be found in the show notes. Remember to activate, align, heal, empower, and find love in everything that you do.